Hey guys, my name is Alex or GodOfPog. I'm a reviewer and editor for the Liquipedia, Valorant, and Overwatch wikis, and today I'm just going to be doing a tutorial on how to create a tournament page on the Valorant wiki. So the first thing I'm going to have is a public bracket link where I'm going to be able to find all the information I need about the tournament. Usually you'll find it on the tournament organizer's website, or they'll be hosting it on some kind of other website like Battlefy is a common one, or Challenger mode. Next, you're going to want to go to the Valorant wiki, and you're going to want to go to contribute, and you're going to go to the help portal and editing help, and you'll find a few helpful templates and guides on how to edit on the wiki. But the one we're going to concern ourselves with is the making a tournament page. What you can then do is you can read through these if you have time. I'm just going to be scrolling down, and I'm going to be going to the copy paste, and I'm going to select and copy. Now, the next thing you need to do is you need to find, the name of the tournament, and you need to go to that on the wiki. So there is naming standards and conventions on the wiki. Generally, it'll be the tournament organizer, followed by the year, followed by the series. So the tournament organizer for this is Evil Geniuses. So we're just going to type Evil Geniuses, and then the year is 2024, and the name of the tournament is Back to School Bash. So you can save this and it will bring you directly to where you want to go from the URL. You can also, if you don't want to type into the URL, you can search the tournament. So if you type it into the search bar, I'm just going to paste it, but you can type it all out, and you'll get a red link here, and you can click that. It will bring you to create a page. Either way works, whichever way you feel more comfortable with. I'm just going to be doing it here. So select and copy, then create the page. Make sure you are logged in. If you aren't logged in, do so. Then just paste all the information. You'll have a whole load of empty parameters and templates. And I'm just going to walk through the basic guide of how to set up a tournament page. So the first thing you're going to see is the page URL and the page URL statistics. So these are just from here, the Evil Geniuses 2024 Back to School Bash. So whatever the page URL is, just replace it with the page URL as needed. You can add or remove tabs. If your tournament is a longer tournament, you may need to add a group stage. So for example, you would add name to is group stage, link to is the page URL, followed by whatever URL, whatever like stage of the tournament would be. So group stage, Swift stage, open qualifier, whatever. And then you change it into name free, link free, and so on and so forth the whole way down. This one is just a one series event, so 2 tabs is plenty. Next is the name of the event. So again, it's Evil Invitation of Valorant Back to School Bash. So we can just copy that in here. And so then we're going to go down to the Infobox League. So you'll see on every single tournament on the wiki, I'm going to go to Ascension as an example. You'll see this box on the right of the wiki, on the right of the page. This is the Infobox League, and almost every single page on the wiki will have an infobox. This is where information for the tournament is stored. So we're just going to go through this one by one. So Liquipedia tier, there's 4 tiers on the wiki: S tier, A tier, B tier, and C tier, and they just correlate to the relative scale of the tournament and notoriety of the tournament. So most tournaments are going to be C tier, as this one is. However, if your tournament is a bigger scale, if it's a large off-season tournament, it could be B tier, it could be A tier. Just have a look at what other events are being tiered as, and if you're not sure, you can ask in the Discord for help. So then the name will just match the display title. So name is Evil Invitational, a Valorant Back to School Bash. Then we have short name and ticker name. These are basically the shorter versions of the name that will be shown on the wiki in smaller boxes. So short name, we're just going to do e.g. back to school. And ticker name, we're just going to do this. Actually, I'm going to put 20 for 24 here. And for ticker name, I'm just going to do e.g. back to school, because the ticker name, if I go to the main page, this is where the ticker name is used. It's only used on like upcoming matches or while the event is live or very recent. So there's no need to add more defining characteristics, where a short name can be used for years and years. So it's better to have some more defining. The ticker name must always fit within the boxes here and here. You'll see when you create the tournament page, whether it does or doesn't, you can always go back and fix it afterwards. Next is image dark mode, icon, and you can also have icon dark. So for our case, because Evil Genius is hosting this tournament, we're going to be using the Evil Geniuses logo. You will be able to find a lot of esports tournament logos on Commons. You can also upload them yourself. However, you should make sure you're following the file standard guides when doing so. In our case, art logos are already on Commons, so just Evil Genius's full light mode, Evil Genius's full dark mode, and then the icon is usually a no text variation of the tournament of the logo, and this will be used in smaller boxes again. A series is if your tournament is repeating, you may have a series for that tournament. So, for example, the most common series in Valorant is VCT. So all VCT tournaments get this VCT series abbreviation, and it basically just allows you to track multiple tournaments within the same series very easily. In our case, it is not relevant here. Organizer is Evil Geniuses. And because they have a page on the wiki, I do not need to link to it. I can just link to it internally by putting these boxes around it. If I wanted to link to like Evil Genius's website, for example, I could do so like this. Evil Geniuses, and then the organizer link would just be this. So if it was, some other tournament organizer, we would do so. But because Evil Geniuses has a page on the wiki, we can just link to their team page, which works out fine. Sponsor, usually you can find if there's a sponsorship information on the either like messaging and images of the event, or you can find it on their bracket pages. In our case, I don't see one quite yet, so I'm going to assume there isn't one. Sponsor is not the most important parameter. If you can't find the information, you can skip it. Riot sponsored. So in our case, this is not a Riot sponsored tournament, so we're going to remove this. If our tournament was Riot sponsored, if it was a part of the VCT or if it was a part of like challengers, we would just put it as true. Oh, true. But in our case, it is not, so we're going to remove the line. So then we have prize pool, local currency, and prize pool USD. So in our case, we have a $3,000 prize pool. This is in US dollars. So we are just going to type it into here as prize pool USD. And prize pool and local currency are not relevant here. However, if our prize pool was in, let's say, 3,000 euros, our local currency would be euros, and our prize pool would be 3,000. This is just to make sure that data all gets stored properly, because all prize pools and currency on the wiki get converted to US dollars. So yeah, in our case, we don't need to differentiate the currency. We can just use prize pool USD. Type, so there are three types of tournaments on the wiki. There are online, there are offline, and there's online offline. So online offline tournaments would be tournaments where there is an online stage and then there's an offline LAN stage. Offline tournaments would be a full LAN tournament, and online tournaments would be a full online tournament. In our case, it's a full online tournament. Female, this is for if your tournament is a Game Changers tournament, or if your tournament is a Game Changers majority tournament. So in our case, it is not. There's no requirement for teams to have a certain amount of Game Changers players, so we can remove it. Next is country. So in our case, it's a bit counterintuitive, but our country is actually North America. There's a few regions you can put in here that will work properly, but basically just think of like how you would define who the tournament is for. So if your tournament is for Europe, put in Europe. If your tournament is just for Germany, put in Germany. If our tournament's online, so there's no city and no venue. If our tournament was a LAN event in like Seattle, we would put Seattle as the city, and then we would put the stadium or venue or whatever as the venue, and you can link to the venue. In our case, it doesn't matter. Format, this is a 126 team, if I remember correctly, single elimination bracket. So I'm just going to put single elimination. Now, date, this is important. Every single date on the wiki should appear in the format year, month, day. So, for example, this tournament is being taken place on September 4th, I think. No, September 7th. September 7th. So, for our case, it's 2024-09 for September, and September 7th. So, September 7th. This is how all dates should be used so that we don't get confused between American date formats and European or the rest of the world. If our tournament was being taken place over multiple days, so let's say it was the 7th and 8th, we would use 2024-09-07. And then, so our start date would be 2024-09-07, and our end date would be 2024-09-08. However, our tournament is just over one day, so we don't need it. The patch at the current time is 9.04. The tournament is being played at like the online stage. Generally, it'll be the current patch. You'll find this information in most rulebooks. Riot events and larger LAN events may have access to the tournament client, so they may not be playing on live patch, but probably about 95% of tournaments on the wiki are playing on the live patch. Bracket, so this is just a link to the bracket of the tournament that's being covered. So just going to copy the URL and you just go to bracket and just paste it in. Rulebook, if there is a rulebook, you can link to it. If there isn't, there is here. So just going to copy the rulebook URL and paste it in. It's interesting that they don't have the share URL. All good. Next is web. So this is where we can put like the Evil Geniuses website. Discord, I doubt they have their Discord on here. Oh, they do have a Discord for the tournament. Discord. So usually you can find all this information fairly easily. This is all just the tournament organizers, social medias, or if the league itself has a like Twitter or Twitch or whatever. So the Twitch in this case is Evil Geniuses. The Twitter is pretty sure it's this one, the Genius League. Yeah, EG Genius League. And Instagram they don't have, YouTube they don't have, Facebook they don't have. Team number. So this is the number of total teams competing in the tournament, not just the number of teams that we're covering on the wiki, the total number of teams competing in the tournament. So in our case, there is 124 teams competing, so 124. Map pool. Most tournament websites will have this at somewhere on the wiki, in the rulebook or on the bracket itself. What you can do is, if you are 100% certain in what the map page is, you can go to a tournament that's happening at the same time, and you can copy the map info and paste it in. This just saves you some time. You should absolutely double check that these are the correct map pools. I've already done so for this tournament, so I know that this is correct. Usually it'll be in the rulebook, but yeah, please do check. Then there's next, next to, previous, and previous to. These parameters basically just allow you to add the chronology of the tournaments. So you'll see here for Ascension EMEA, we can link to Ascension EMEA 2023 for that would be in previous, and next would be VCT 2025. So I'm just going to show you how that looks here. So the previous tournament is VCL 2023 EMEA. So you use the URL of the tournament and you do a divider and Ascension 2023, so whatever the name will be, and same for next. In our case, we don't have a previous version of this tournament and there's no confirmed follow-up or sequel, so we can just remove these parameters. Upcoming matches tournament, you just put the URL of the tournament where the games are being played. So yeah, wherever the tournament should be taking match data from, just put the URL in here. About, if you want to, you can write a quick description of the tournament. This can be useful for tournaments with restrictions or tournaments with larger, more broad coverage, for example, such as like collegiate tournaments where there may be some specifications about the tournament that we need to clarify. In our case, it's fine to leave it. Next is broadcast talent. So in our case, the league has actually announced the broadcast talent, which we can see here. So you can add broadcast talent either by just copying it from another page and editing it, but I'm going to be doing it by hand here just to show you how it's done. So the first thing you're going to need to do is start a box, and you do so by doing box, divider, start, and set the padding. So usually it's 2 or 1 EM. Next is, so we do have a defined kind of series of how we order the broadcaster cards in the wiki. So it's hosts, and then commentators and analysts, and then observers, and then producers. So the first one is hosts, and the host of this tournament is Becky Bear. So we just put Becky Bear in here, and then we have B1 flag and B1 name. Oh, I cannot type. Next, so because there's only one host, as far as I'm aware, yep, caster, observer, producer. So next thing I'm going to do is just create a separate box. So we're going to make a break within the box, and we're going to use the broadcaster card again. I'm going to change the position to commentator, and we're going to put the two commentators in. So it is Ashkin and it is Zobi. B2 flag equals B2 name equals. And then same again for observers. So the observers are reachdat and Kale. So observer, reachdat and Kale. And finally the technical producer is Nathan. So Nathan. So, and then you can close the box with just box, end, and close. Now, I'm going to preview this to see how it looks. We may have some information filled out already. Yeah. So you'll see people who have already appeared on the wiki will have their name filled in and potentially a flag, and they may be notable, so they may have a page. If they do have this information, then there's no need for us to type it in on this page itself. For us, because we see that Becky Bear, Ashkin, Hojati, and Nathan do not have the information, we can try and see if we can find that information. So Ashkin is Iranian, so we can add his flag as Iranian. I am going to double check what the Iranian ISO code is because I do not know it off the top of my head. You can find this on the wiki or you can find it on Wikipedia, either works. So it's IR. So his flag is IR and his name is just his caster name is his name, so we don't need to put that in there. I'm going to show you how Zobi would be put in, but they already have a page, so it doesn't matter as much, but it doesn't matter at all. But just as an example of filling one out, so Zobi B2 flag would be US for United States, and their name is Sierra Frisbee. But this is not relevant here because they already have a page. Same for Kale and Reachdot, and we don't have the information about Nathan. That's fine. So format, this is usually you'll find it in some kind of the rules or schedule or somewhere described, but yeah, tournament open bracket will be best of one until the semifinals, which will be best of three, and then the finals is best of five. So usually there is a set format to how you should add formats. I tend to just go to a similar tournament and then copy the format, and then you just basically change whatever you need for this specific tournament. So this is a 124 team single elimination bracket. All matches are best of one, excluding the semi-finals and grand final. Semi-finals are best of three, and grand final is abbreviation best of five. And this is quite a simple format, so we don't need to do any more. You can have a look at some other tournaments for how more complicated formats can be shown, but in our case, that's about it. Next is the prize pool. So this is where I would recommend that you go to the tournament tutorial page and you have a look at the prize pool and you can read actually the docs that explain the documentation that explains how these templates work because they can get quite complicated. In our case, the only thing you need to set is the prize for this tournament because the prize is in US dollars and all the information is on this page by itself. So usually you'll find this information in the rulebook. Thankfully it is here. So we have USD prize 1,500. Second place is 1,000. Third and fourth place is both $250. So USD prize is 250 each. And because this is a ongoing tournament, like a current tournament, you can set import to true or you can remove it. It is true by default. Tournament is not relevant here because all the information is on this page. It is recommended that you read the docs though if you are having trouble with importing this information. Tournament basically just tells the prize pool where to get the information from. So the tournament here is the tournament that is getting the information from, which is perfect, so we can remove that. And there's no other more complicated qualifying or anything, so the prize pool is basically complete as it is here. Participants, so you can write below participants how many teams are going to be covered on this page. So in our case, we're going to be covering the top 8 of this tournament. And you just make that many team cards. It's kind of self-explanatory. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's 8 teams here. And for now, I'm going to leave them as blank because I haven't looked at who has qualified yet. So for our tournament here, there is no group stage, it's just a playoff stage. So there's going to be no need to add this group stage. I'd recommend you do have a look at Group Table League if you are adding a group stage, and you can always ask questions in the Discord as some of this stuff can be very confusing if it's your first time doing so. In our case, we're just going to be covering the playoffs, so we just need an elimination bracket. So what you can do is you can go to the tournament tutorial and you can just click get your bracket here and click this. It'll bring you to the copy paste for the bracket to generate a bracket, and you'll see on the tutorial there's a list of some of the more common tournaments. So in our case, we're covering an 8-team single elimination bracket, so 8 SE. There's a load of others. There's also, if you aren't able to quickly get a quick name for it, you can go to the bracket designer and you can import a bracket. So let's say we wanted to cover a 64-team single elimination bracket. It would be 64. Let's say there was one game with a bye. It would be this random bunch of numbers. So you just copy this, you'd go to the template ID and you'd run the query and it would spit it all out. Of course, I chose the one that doesn't have an example, but yeah, in our case, 8-team single elimination works completely fine. I'm going to go back to dark theme so I can see this. Default number of maps. So as we saw, it's best of 1, then best of 3, then best of 5. So I'm just going to do best of 1 because it doesn't. I'm going to change it anyways because there's variance. Display stream parameters. You can set to true. Display map veto. We don't have that information from this bracket. Some tournaments will. Depends if you have access to the information. You can add it. Display third bracket reset match. There is none for this tournament. So if in a single elimination bracket there's a third place match, you would set this to true. If there isn't, you can leave it false. If you're doing a double elimination bracket and there's a bracket reset after it, you would set this to true. Most of these are fairly self-explanatory. Add caster params. So if there's a stream and you know who the casters are, exactly, just add it. It's all very self-explanatory. So back to the page where we're creating it. There is no group stage, so we can just remove this from the page. And I'm going to change playoffs to top 8. And just replace the text here with the bracket we've just generated. And that's about it. So we can find out what time these games were scheduled for, maybe. No. Okay. We can find grand finals, semifinals, quarterfinals. These tournament websites love to be weird. Okay. Well, I'm just going to put in an artificial date here. So September 7th. So in the date here, you should write it out because it just makes copying it a lot easier and makes it more understandable. So date September 7th, 2024, 1600, and we can present like just Pacific Daylight Time, or yeah, or whatever the time zone of the tournament is. If you don't know what time zone the tournament is, you can put it in your own time zone. For example, for me, it would be British summertime, but obviously change the tournament time zones to however you best are able to put that information where, as long as it's accurate, it works fine. Generally, we prefer the time zone that the tournament is being played in. Don't actually know the specific schedule yet. We are able to get that information later, but for now I'm going to leave it blank. And there will be another tutorial video on how to enter match results, so be sure to go and see that one because it can get quite complicated on the Valorant wiki, but once you get the hang of it, it's very simple. Most of it is just filling out, what date the tournament happened at, the Twitch URL, the YouTube URL, the team names go in here. So if you have like who would be here. So this is the first match at the quarterfinals. So Berserkers versus Special Grade. So we can just go Berserkers versus Special Grade. And I'm pretty sure both these teams already have team templates created. They do. So Berserkers versus Special Grade. You may get a team template error here. If you do, go to the help portal, go to editing help, and go to making a team template. And there will be a YouTube video that gives you a guide on how to create a team template. It is very simple. Just every single team on the wiki will have their own team template required. So yeah. Next, I'm going to show you how to add. So let's say we have Berserkers and Special Grade. Just going to add one of these to the team card. So we're going to have Berserkers here. And they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players, which is perfect. So they have Ruckles, they have Alvin Boy, and you literally just enter them as player 1, player 2, player 3, player 4, player 5. RetroQ. This is Logan. He has a silly symbol in his name on a battle flag, but it's Logan. And Nanners. They have no subs or coach. Oh, they do. They have Bonnie, who's their coach. No, that's their sub, and then Big Bear, who's their coach. So this team is actually known. So we have this information. So For here, if I press show preview, the team logo will fill in here and you'll see four of these players are already notable. So, and the staff is not. So this means that we need to fill in the flag information for Ruckles. Usually you can find this information on Twitter or somewhere. I'm not going to do it now because I'm making a tutorial, but Ruckles, if his flag was the United States, US, if it was Canada, CA, again, just use the ISO list to put in whatever tournament with the two-letter abbreviation, or whatever flag with the two-letter abbreviation. So let's assume that you now know how to put in team card information and bracket information and just creating your bracket. Next is additional data and country representation. So this is on every single page on the wiki. All it does is it creates a nice little country graph for, I'll go to a page that has the data stored, just creates a country representation graph of who is competing in the tournament from the participants list. Very simple. Additional content streams. If your tournament has multiple streams or multiple language streams, you can put this information in here the same way you'd put it into Twitch or YouTube in the bracket or in the info box. Our tournament does not, so we're going to remove it. If there was additional content such as interviews or like the TO had made hype videos or something similar, that could potentially be included here. Just, use some common sense and see what kind of additional content about the tournament belongs in here. References ref list. This should be on every single tournament. It just creates a reference list at the bottom. And now I'm going to show the preview. And you should have, you're creating an Evil Invitational Valorant Back to School Bash. All the info box tables should be correct. You have broadcast talent, you have the format, you have the prize pool with the correct dollar amounts. You have the team, you have an 8-team bracket, and you have all this information. So we're going to press save, and you'll see the country representation has updated. And there's one other thing that you need to do on Valorant tournaments, which is create the statistics tab. So statistics is just basically where we store all the kills, deaths, assists, ACS of all these players. And you can do this very easily by going to another tournament's statistics page, copying it, and then going here and pasting it, and just replacing the data with your own tournament's like information. So we're going to have the same display title, just with statistics at the end. You're going to have the same tabs because we just want to be able to link between the overview and the statistics. Player statistics, so there's only one tournament page to get information from. So it is the Evil Geniuses 2024 Back to School Bash tournament, and same for here, tournament stats. Now there will be an error here because we're not going to have map veto information for this tournament. So what you can do is you can go to the templates used on this page. You can go to tournament stats and you'll get the documentation. And there's an example of no map veto information. And all you do is you replace it in here with map span table and map span graph. Set them both to hide because we don't have access to that information for this tournament. And all this information will begin to populate when we start putting in match results. That should be all that you need to create a tournament page on the Valorant wiki. If you have any questions, please do join the Discord. It is the best way to reach editors. Have some patience because we are all mostly volunteers doing this in our free time. Yeah, best of luck. Thank you for watching and hope to see you in the Discord soon.